Yeah, that's how that's the one. But no one is saying.
Evening, everyone. I'd like to thank those of you that are here in person
those of you that are watching us live and those that may watch us later, to the regular meeting of the Rapid City Area Schools. Shirley, may we have a roll call, please?
Troy Carr,
Here.
Jamie Clapham,
Here.
Christine Stephenson.
Here.
Donna Moore,
Here.
Michael Berkland,
Here.
Walt Swan,
Here.
Katie Urban,
Here.
Amelia Schaefpower, Arabella Scott, and Maricel Parentis.
All right, I'd like to invite everybody to stand for our Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, I will entertain a motion to approve the proposed agenda.
Motion.
Second. It's been motioned and seconded to approve the proposed agenda. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Noes, please say no. Okay, sharing the success. Dr. Strasser. Strasser. In between names.
Good evening, board. We've got two recognitions tonight. The first one, we'll start with our esports team. So the state esports championship took place February 14th and 15th. Central High School had 6 teams compete this year, and I'm going to bring them forward. Come on over.
Come on down.
Just kind of line up right over here. And then I'm going to ask Mr. Bauer.
Face the board. Yeah.
There you are.
All right. Wonderful.
It is kind of.
Wonderful.
So.
Thank you, Dr. Strasser. My name is Jordan Bauer. I'm the activities director here. So I'm excited to.
Parents, if you want to take pictures, come on around.
Yeah.
Don't be shy.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's fine.
Parents
No
must
baby
take
traps, no
pictures.
hot wires.
All right, Mr. Bowers.
Awesome. Thank you. So as Dr. Strasser said, the 2025 State Esports Championship took place on February 14th and 15th up in Aberdeen at Central High School up there. It was impressive that each team was able to attend. Just by being invited, they were in the top 32 players or teams in the state. For that alone, very proud of this group of kids that we have up here. In addition, each player or team played their best and achieved even greater heights. At each regular season tournament, or this tournament, I mean, was double elimination. So players had a chance to obtain victory even after perhaps having a bad match. In chess, Noah, can you wave? Or is Noah not here tonight? Okay, sorry about that. Played straight through 4 victories on day 1, including 1 match that lasted 72 minutes. He lost during the last match of the day before losing again on the second day. He finishes in the top 8 chess players in the state this year. In Mario Kart, we had Dixon and Shaylin. They played well, were unable to advance to the semis, but finished in the top 16. Our Minecraft Bed Wars, 2 of our seasoned players, Noah and Danica, were unable to attend the championship, but replaced with subs Timothy and Dorian, who barely knew the game. Nevertheless, played extremely well to the point where the opposing teams only won during sudden death, and they also finished in the top 8 in the state this year. In Smash Brothers, Dixon played well, lost in the first round, finished in the top 32. Timothy also played very well all the way to the quarterfinals, but was knocked into the losers bracket and was defeated by his rival from the season, and is also in the top 8. And last but certainly not least, Vince began as the 18th seed due to some forfeits during the season, made it all the way to the finals with no losses, struggled in the final a little, but came to be the Super Smash Brothers Ultimate State Champion with the 3-2 match and no losses. So Vince was our first state champion. So incredibly proud of this group. And again, we just want to thank the board and the district for allowing this opportunity for these kids. We had a really fun year in our first year competing at the state level, and looking forward to more continued success as we move forward. So thanks again, and congrats to these awesome kids and coaches.
All right, board, while they're taking pictures, board members, any comments? I do have a comment. None of you were born when, Mario Kart and Smash Brothers came out. So, so being my age, it's exciting to see that, Mario Kart has gone from just being a pleasure game for me and my friends and getting in trouble for playing it, when we didn't do our homework, to now being an actual sport. So that's exciting for me and my generation. So, all right. Anybody else? Oh, Mr. Berkeley.
Yeah, thank you. First off, Vince, who do you mean? Who do you play as? Yeah. Oh, no wonder you won. Yeah, that's a tough one. Congratulations to all of you, and I just wanted to echo kind of what Bishop Carr said. Back when I was in high school, I would have loved to have something like this. So I'm so proud that we have it, and so proud of you for all that you're doing. And I'm just so, it makes me so happy to see you all here.
Yeah, it's exciting. Mrs. Urban.
Congratulations, you guys. I'm super excited too. I think my son would have really benefited from this. I'm so glad we have it. And do you guys use like the bumpers on Mario Kart? Okay, so probably not. It's like, so you can't drive off the road. Yeah. Oh, you do use that? Yeah. Okay, my kids tell me I'm lame when I use that. Okay, cool.
All right. Thank you so very much.
All right. Good job. Thanks for coming. All right, our second sharing the success tonight is our McKinney-Vento team. And to share a little bit about them and their work, I'm going to ask Dr. Conroy to come forward, and he can bring his team forward as well.
Good evening. Thank you, Dr. Strasser. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen of the board, to allow me the opportunity to celebrate our McKinney-Vento team. My name is Justin Conroy. I'm the Title I-D principal for the school district here, and I have the opportunity to work with this awesome group on a daily basis. So I want to take a moment to recognize and extend my deepest appreciation to the Rapid City Area Schools McKinney-Vento team for their unwavering dedication to supporting students who are experiencing homelessness in our district. Their tireless efforts ensure that some of our most vulnerable students receive the stability, resources, and advocacy they need to continue their education without disruption. As you may know, the McKinney-Vento Homeless Assistance Act is a federal law that ensures students facing housing instability have access to education. It requires school districts to remove barriers to enrollment, attendance, and success by providing essential services such as transportation, school supplies, and access to community resources. Through this act, districts can help ensure that students experiencing homelessness have the opportunity to thrive academically despite their circumstances. Here, the Rapid City Area Schools McKinney-Vento team goes above and beyond in fulfilling this mission. They work closely with families, schools, and community organizations to provide critical support, ensuring that students have the stability they need to focus on their education. Whether it's securing transportation, assisting with school supplies, or connecting families with different resources that we have here in our community. Their commitment, their compassion make an immeasurable impact on the lives of the students in need. So, the Rapid City McKinney-Vento team, thank you for your dedication and the difference you make every day. Your work is not just about compliance with the federal mandate, it's about changing lives, breaking down barriers, and giving every student a fair chance at success. Your efforts truly embody the spirit of equity, care, and education. Now, I'd like to introduce to you our team here. We have Anita Darenlow, our McKinney-Vento coordinator. Duranlo, sorry, Anita. Yeah, everyone in the district knows just Anita. So Christine Briggs, she's our McKinney-Vento paraprofessional. She works on the west side. Stacy Rosdale, our McKinney-Vento paraprofessional. She works on the south side. Simone Dash, she works McKinney-Vento paraprofessional. She works on up on the north side. We have Gabe, who's based out of General Beetle, as well as Kira Hinojosa, who works with our Central and Ramp City Alternative Academy, and Penny Osborne, who works out in the Valley schools. So with that, I appreciate everything that you do. You're a great group of individuals, and you definitely make a difference within our students' lives. And thank you.
Ms. Clapham.
I had a question. Could you guys remind me right now how many students we have in the program approximately? I know that it changes. 500.
Is that right around where we've hovered for the last few years?
It's, yeah, we're down about 80 students from last year, but last year COVID funding kind of brought more students to the district, so.
Oh, okay.
Right. Board, anybody else?
I have,
Yeah. Oh, go
just-
ahead.
Well, you-
oh, you were just done?
You can go ahead first.
You're always so much more elegant than me anyway. I just wanted to thank you. You know, I learned from I've learned from a few of you over the years about the work that you do. And for those on the board who don't know, or the public, that when a student is homeless, this team makes sure that they stay at their home school, no matter where their family goes. And that's just such an enormous thing. And we don't think about it, how meaningful that is in the life of a student. And I know that's only one thing of many, and I'm so grateful. There aren't enough of you, and I know you're running around. It means the world to those kids, and so it means the world to us in this district.
And I just want to say I happened to be reading recently, and homelessness in the United States hit an all-time high in 2024. Like, we are in a continuing growing crisis, and I think we often hear kind of the cliche, like the American dream, and you guys are people who make American dreams possible for kids. And that's so powerful. You guys, hearts and souls, like people that could be forgotten. And that means so much to me as a parent, as a citizen, as a board member. And I'm just so grateful for you that those kids aren't losing their dream because you guys are in the background making that happen. And that's huge. So thank you for all that you do.
Ms. Urban.
I don't have a lot to add other than just thank you for what you do. I've seen it firsthand and how it impacts kids, and just, being able to go to the food closet during the day, or I'm not sure what you call it now, but all of those things make such a massive difference. And I truly believe that they're not able to learn unless some of those basic needs are taken care of. So thank you all so much.
Right, and I'd just like to say this is an important part of our board meeting, sharing the success so that we can thank you in person and let the community know you deal with a population of people who are in crisis, and that is difficult emotionally, it's difficult physically, and you deal with people, you don't just end the day and go home and not think about some of the people that you've encountered. And so it stays with you. So thank you for doing that for the people that you serve. I personally appreciate it. Okay. Anybody else? Now for the group picture.
She's gonna tell you to get closer together.
All right, thank you. Let's give them another round. All right, at this time, I'll have open forum. We have two. Both of you will have 5 minutes. Up first is Mr. Malali. I cheated. I only knew how to pronounce it because I heard you guys over there saying it, so I hope I did.
Perfect. After St. Patty's Day, that's a good name to have too.
Yeah, all right.
Thank you, Mr. President and board members. I have a revenue issue I just want to bring up here. Occasionally I speak at these school board meetings. I live in the Rapid City School District and own property, so therefore I'm a stakeholder in that I pay taxes. And part of the levy on my property taxes goes to fund this district since I'm in this district. And as we know, this last legislative session, property taxes are a hot topic. So in this particular case, I wanted to talk about the effect of TIFs on how school districts are funded. And TIF stands for tax increment financing, and it's a mechanism to bring in generally infrastructure, roads, sewer, et cetera, to an area that's being developed. It can be either a county TIF or a city TIF. In fact, last night at the Rapid City Council meeting, they heard a TIF request. When the developer is granted the TIF, they take out a bond to pay for the infrastructure that is required in the TIF district, water, sewer, roads, for example. And that would probably be a 20-year payoff for that bond. And the idea is that the increased value of the property will result in more taxes being collected from the district because the assessment will be higher. And development, these additional revenues would go to the taxing entities, schools, counties, and other road districts, et cetera. But in the case of a TIF, these revenues are it's called the increment, the extra value that they collect are diverted to the developer to pay off the bond. So that's just a little background on the TIF, but the net effect is that there will be an extra burden on these taxing entities because they're not they have to provide services. You know, you got more kids that you have to teach, but you're not getting those additional revenues. So what has to happen, depending on the TIF, the auditor is going to have to increase the tax levy to make up for this loss of revenue. So everybody in the district is going it's going to be spread out, but everybody's going to have to pay extra. Or in some cases, in affordable housing TIF, the state will have to use state money. But in either case, it's taxpayer money. And every time there's going to be a TIF request, the board will be notified with a letter from either the county or the city. So I guess I would request that you express your opposition to most of these TIFs on the grounds that they do increase property taxes. And every little bit counts. I'd rather see my tax revenue levy go to support the school as it's intended rather than being diverted to infrastructure projects. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our second and last speaker, Mrs. Thompson.
Good evening, board. As you know, my name is Florence Thompson. I'm president of South Dakota Parents Involved in Education. And I'm also a retired school psychologist with over 40 years experience in the schools. I've been gone for a few weeks because I've been down at Pier, driving back and forth as a volunteer lobbyist for South Dakota Parents Involved in Education. And I brought back something for you. This wasn't from the legislature, but I did send you all an email. Unfortunately, Walt and Katie's came back to me, so I'll try to get those going again. But anyway, what it is it's for executive orders that President Trump has done recently. And I thought it would be handy for you to have those because the links, the little blue links there for the executive orders are in the email. So you can just click on that if you want to get the executive order itself and read the details. The first one is keeping men out of women's sports. And so this is one that's been big in the news and that is an executive order, so it is now the law of the land, so it should be interesting to see how that all works out. But this is going to affect schools, so it's going to affect school policy. The other one is protecting children from chemical and surgical mutilation. And this involves the transgender process. And there will be no more of this in the United States. We've banned this now with this executive order. And that joins several other countries, I believe England, pretty sure Sweden, some other countries have banned these procedures as well. The transgender surgeries and, well, the things that go with it, the hormone treatments and everything, really condemns people to a life of medical intervention. And it's not working out well in the long run for a lot of people. So to protect children from this, from making decisions before they're old enough to make an adult decision, now it will be illegal in the United States. Another one is ending radical indoctrination in K-12 schooling. And that includes CRT, and I believe it also includes LGBT things as well. And defending women. The fourth one is defending women from gender ideology extremism and restoring biological truth to the federal government. So they're no longer going to be men in women's facilities. They're no longer going to be men competing with women. So this is what President Trump has done with his executive orders. And I happen to agree with him. I'm sure there are some here that probably don't, but nevertheless, it will affect school policy. So I just thought you might be handy for you to have those as a reference. So that's why I sent them to you.
Thank you. Board response to open forum. Mrs. Stephenson.
Yeah, I just wanted to let everybody know who's listening that you don't have to email board members separately. You can email Rapid City Board of Education at k12.sc.us and we'll all get it. So anybody who wants to get in touch with the board, because I don't know, Mrs. Thompson, if I got your email either. I don't see it in my box, but I don't see it. So anybody who's listening, if you ever want to email all board members at once, Rapid City Board of Education at k12.sc.us.
All right. Any other responses? Seeing none, we will go to our student reports. First up, Ms. Scott, representing Stevens High School.
Good evening, board. I hope you're all doing well tonight. So first, I'd like to note that the Raider girls basketball team had a great tournament this past weekend at the state tournament at the Monument in Rapid City. They finished with a 4th place trophy and had amazing sportsmanship and attitudes throughout the entire tournament. Also, our cheer team was honored with the Spirit of the Six Award for the 3rd year in a row, which is a huge honor. And so I'd just like to say congratulations to our girls team and to our cheer team. They've done amazing. Our Raider pep band also did an amazing job playing all day Thursday during the tournament at the Monument. They got to play for our quarterfinal game against Spearfish and sounded great. Next, Stevens boys tennis kicks off their spring season this week. Hopefully the weather holds up these next few weeks, which I think I might have jinxed myself writing this. But they will be preparing for their first varsity invitational on Thursday, March 27th at our newly redone Sioux Park. So I will definitely be coming to support and watch some good tennis. So good luck to them. On that same day, March 27th, the Raider track and field team will be participating in a varsity invitational also at Sioux Park starting at 9 a.m. It'll definitely be a very difficult day, very busy day at Sioux Park that day, so please feel free to come support. Next, Stevens Band will be heading off to Watertown for the All-State concert starting on March 27th. We had a couple of musicians make it, and we are excited to hear their pieces and their contributions to cheer them on. We also recently received data on enrollment for AP classes for the 25 to 26 school year, and Stevens has an increase of 219 requests for AP courses since last year. Almost every class is up with the exception of a few that are down by one or two. Specifically, the AP Government, like AP Government and Politics requests increased from 69 to 137, which I'd like to think is because the AP Gov students, including myself, presented to the sophomore AP US History students and kind of evangelized a little bit and encouraged them to take it. So anyways, we are very excited and very fortunate to offer 14 different AP classes at Stevens and have such immense student interest in them. So next, as many of you know, there's no school this Friday, March 21st for the Raiders and many other schools, as it is a professional learning and development day. And to finish my report tonight, our staff spotlight for this week is Ms. Shannon Zimiga. Senora Zimiga teaches Spanish 1 and AP Spanish at Stevens. She has been teaching for 22 years at Stevens alone, and Senora went to Black Hills State for her undergrad degree and has been in Rapid City area since. Her favorite thing about teaching Spanish is helping young people learn about the world around them in the hopes that they get to see it one day and try new things. In her free time, Senora Zimiga spends time with her family and takes her kids to their activities. So thanks, Senora, for everything you do. And that's all I have for tonight. Go Raiders.
All right, thank you, Ms. Scott. Any questions for Mrs. Scott and her report? All right, again, thank you. Very good report. Next, we have Mrs. Barrientos from the Rapid City Alternative Academy.
Okay, hello, everybody. So I'm gonna start off with current events at RCAA. I was honored to serve on the superintendent interview panel last week. It was a productive and meaningful experience. I want to thank the Board of Education for empowering youth voices and including the student board in this process. Okay, Rapid City Alternative Academy hosted a district-wide CPR and first aid course for capstone students. 15 students, including myself, spent the day with Mr. Binder, who is not only a capstone coordinator, but also EMT and CPR instructor. All of us received our CPR, AED, first aid, and stop the bleed certifications. If you guys could all look at Mr. Binder, because he's awesome and he deserves more recognition. Opportunities like these provide valuable real-world certifications and ensure accessibility for all learners. Thank you to the CCR department, the capstone coordinators, and Mr. Binder for making this possible. Quiet clap. Rapid City Alternative Academy started its fourth quarter last Thursday. This means we all started new classes. It also means we're about 9 academic weeks away from summertime, which is exciting to think about. This quarter, we were able to welcome 24 new students in the Eagles Path, our high school program, 5 new students into the high school prep, our middle school program, and 20 new students in the virtual high school. This week, RCA is hosting a summer job fair for learners. We have over 20 businesses signed to recruit our learners. The blood drive is also going on March 28th. I personally will be reserving my appointment and I'm excited to give back to the community. I invite the board members and senior leadership to participate in our blood drive. You can sign up by checking out our school's Facebook. A quick reminder that the district-wide Feeding South Dakota School Food Pantry will be open this week, March 20th, after school from 3:30 p.m. to 5 p.m. in the VOTEC Annex behind RCAA. More information, if you'd like to know, will be posted on the district school media. For a final part of today's report, I want to celebrate RCAA staff who are already working hard on the master schedule for school next year. This schedule is a very complicated schedule that meets students' needs with staff availability based on the endorsements. The master schedule makes sure we all can get the courses we need for graduation. Thank you to the team of staff that takes this on at RCAA. In closing, I'll remind you of our school-wide expectations at Rapid City Alternative Academy. Be respectful, be present, be courageous. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Wonderful report. Board members, any? Ms. Clapham.
Couple things. One, as people know, I'm a healthcare provider. I think it's wonderful that so many people were trained in the AD and CPR. I can say I've had to do it in real life in real time, and it's a skill that's invaluable. And even when you think you won't remember, you'll remember. So I think that's really wonderful. I wanted to ask, remind the dates of the job fair and the blood drive. Okay.
The blood drive, March 28th for the blood drive.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And just a little plug, I love the fact that in the room right now are our former RCA principal and our current RCA. And I can tell you how much I see them glowing and how proud they are of you. And that just tells me just how invested our staff is. So I love that.
Anything else? All right, at this time, we have talked about this last time, but coming up is Mrs. A. Shapebauer, which is not to be confused with Miss B. Shapebauer. And we have the A. Shapebauer giving a report for Central High School.
Yes, I'm A. Shapebauer because, I'm number one.
Yes.
Just kidding.
Shots fired.
Just kidding. Just kidding. She was here first, so I think she can get the number one title. Okay, good evening, everybody. I just want to say thank you, Maricel, for pointing out that we have 9 weeks left of the semester. That's kind of crazy. They're kicking me out of Central. I'm graduating, so kind of scary, but super bittersweet. Central's had a very eventful couple of weeks here. To start off with school news, Central has recently introduced the Securely Pass system. This is a digital hall pass, and I think other schools in the district are doing it as well. I'm not entirely sure which ones, but I do know that our freshmen have been using it all year. As of yesterday, this was introduced to the entire school to make it easier to know where students are going in the day. I do concede that the initial implementation of this pass system was not very well received by students. There are many concerns about taking away from class time, and some students think it takes away from their rights. But as freshman teachers have had success with it, I truly think that after all the newness wears off, it'll be just the same as a normal hall pass system. So I think that's going to be pretty easy to navigate, pretty good for students. Central's also been having many parent-oriented events lately. These include tonight's incoming freshman night, where 8th graders from East, South, and North can receive an informational presentation about school, course registration, and to get to meet some teachers. For current high school parents, parent-teacher conferences are tonight. My parents are there, so just kidding. I hope they'll say good things about me. And local colleges are also stationed tonight with booths to help students who are applying for financial aid and for the juniors applying to college in just next year. Central is also having a new program recently where parents are able to tag along to classes with their students and truly experience the school from a student perspective. They've already have a few parents on March 14th and are planning for another group of parents next week on March 28th. So if you want more information, if you are a high school parent at Central or know anybody who might want to tag along, you can email brendan.sato@k12.sd.us to sign up. And in student news, most seasons are wrapping up. Well, just a few are still beginning. Kind of like Arabella was saying, we have our boys tennis season starting. And then we also have our track team and girls golf starting the season as well. Wrapping up the season is the debate team, who ended strong last night with 2 academic All-Americans and many letter winners. Girls and boys basketball has also come to an end with a great season overall. And we also have the drama department starting rehearsing the spring musical. Our cobblers have done amazing all year and are going to finish off their year strong as we head into the last couple months, or 9 weeks, left of school. The Rushmore Thunder boys varsity team also won the state hockey championship with students from both Central and Stevens on the team. I guess we aren't that much of rival schools after all. But anyway, we had 6 Central students actually participate on the team, including Colton Merchant, Cam Ritter, Brixton Steen, Mason McGregor, Ian Jensen, and Wyatt Simmons. They'll be heading to the national championships later this year, and I'm sure they'll do great. Hopefully they'll bring back a first place for South Dakota, but we'll see. When it comes to choir, 3 Central choir students were accepted into the National ACDA Honor Choir in Dallas, Texas. Congratulations to Vernon Halter, Roman Spiller, and Camden Walker for achieving this amazing feat. And although he's not still a cobbler, our motto is once a cobbler, always a cobbler. So I'd like to congratulate Cale Larson, a Central alumni and current college student who won the NCAA National Wrestling Championships. This just goes to show how amazing our wrestling program is and what Central students can achieve in their future. Our cobblers are doing amazing, and once a cobbler, always a cobbler. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much for a wonderful report. Board members, any questions or comments for Mrs. Stephenson?
I did. The digital hall pass, is that like on kids' cell phones?
Yeah, so they have an option where you can log into it on the cell phone, the computer, an iPad, any kind of electronic device.
Okay.
And some teachers are also having like an iPad where students can kind of sign themselves out, whereas some are allowing more taking care of it themselves on their school computers. So it's kind of up to the teacher's
So
discretion.
the
at this
idea is
point.
they can be less disruptive. Cause they can go on their
Doing it
computer or phone and get a hall pass.
Okay.
Oh, that's cool. And then the other question I had is this bring your parent to school day. Is it like the whole school's invited to do it and they're just staggered days?
Yeah, so they just have 2 days right now. The 28th is the next one, and it's any parent who wants to in the entire school can go all day, coming along with their kids to any other classes.
Okay. What if their kids don't want them?
Too
My
bad.
daughter would ever let that happen.
All right,
Thank
Mrs.
you.
Urban.
I was just gonna say the same thing. I was not invited. My child did not invite me. And I saw our student school board secretary over there like shaking her head. Absolutely not. So it'll be interesting to see how well attended it is, but I do love that it's an opportunity.
All right. Thank you. Anyone else? All right, thank you, ladies. Very good. All three were good reports, so appreciate that. At this time, we'll have our acting superintendent report, Dr. Strasser.
Good evening again, board. Some things coming out of my office. So next week we have our study session, and just to remind you on that, you'll be hearing several things, predominantly from RCAA, since we have good representation here tonight, but sharing an update on the program changes that we made over the course of from last year to this year and our progress there. You'll be hearing a lot about elementary programming options that we are proposing and bringing forward to you, and how that will also impact the use of Kip and Custer as one of our facilities, educational facilities. In addition to that, I haven't talked about the Children's Home Society on our within our system recently. I could tell you that I had a great conversation with the director from CHS, and we continue to make progress. We're still hopeful for a March 31st start date with kids in the building. And I know the director and his team are connecting with our principals and walking through the referral process, making sure we have clarity on how we can best support kids and which kids would benefit and have success in children's homes. So really looking forward to that getting formally started again, looking at March 31st. On the staff pillar side, we have some PLC work coming into our district in the next 2 days. A gentleman from Solution Tree, his name's Mike Maffoni. He's going to be working with our principals and some of our PLC teams at different sites around the district. So that's kind of an exciting piece of work right now. We've talked about the National Institute for School Leadership before, and that is coming to fruition. We have our first cohort. They will start in May, and then with an orientation, and then officially getting into the work around just all things school leadership starting in June. We've done a lot of work with organizational excellence with Casey from Stewart Education, working with our directors. She introduced a new concept called the bullseye approach, and that's something that I think could give us, again, more clarity on how we work through our strategic plan and really carry that out from the district level to hardwiring our practices and then sharing that down through the district. We know that we have some makeup days, and we lost a couple days on February 18 and 19. As part of evaluating the makeup days, we know we're still on track in meeting our obligations regarding student contact time. But we have contractual days with our staff, and so we have 2 PD days is what I'm bringing forward to the staff on May 27 and 28. And I know this comes after Memorial Weekend. We would keep our end of the year with our student last day on Thursday, the 22nd. We would keep a teacher work day on a half day on the 23rd. We would have our graduation, our Memorial Weekend, and then we would come back with 2 professional development days. Our TLI department has put together a tentative plan already on how we bring value to those 2 days. We're not just going have days to have days. So the value there is around continuing professional learning community development and how we can bring that to our staff. And I realize that there's always pitfalls with it anytime bringing staff back, but I also think it can be an opportunity for us to keep advancing things that we've been working on. So that's the plan that we have around snow makeup days. And I also understand there has to be some flexibility with staff and leave times. And we'll have some of that flexibility there within our agreements that we have. So that's how we're looking at snow makeup days. On the parent engagement side, with our community pillar, I've received those results and have started looking through. And very similar to our employee engagement, there are 15 questions on this survey, and the broad overview of that experience survey, all 15 questions showed a positive year-over-year gain. And just to highlight the two questions that showed the most significant gain were questions 2 and 3, and that's I believe school rules are enforced consistently at this school, and I regularly receive feedback from school staff on how well my child is learning. So just a little snippet of the parent caregiver survey, and this is information that again that is district level, but our administrators at the building will be breaking that information down, and we have a specific rollout process where we analyze, we look at themes, and then we take that information and we turn that into action steps. So we'll be working through that process here. That actually starts tomorrow with some work with principals. And that is the information I wanted to share tonight. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
All right, Ms. Clapham.
Just kind of for public information, so am I correct that, because I know for some people the timing seems like, oh, we're starting the children's home on March 31st, but it is correct that there is summer programming to help with consistency and continuing to make progress through the summer for those students?
Yes, that is correct. They run a full year program, and that's part of our contracted work with them and we're supporting our students.
Okay, thank you.
Where do those funds come from for the summer programming?
It's all within the contract that we have with them.
We pay them though, from just our general education budget?
Yes.
Mrs. Urban.
Maybe this is a dumb question, but I'm new, so do we vote on the snow day makeup? Or is that just like you say, we're gonna do it, we're gonna do it?
That is an administrative decision.
Okay,
And yeah.
thank you.
Okay, Mr. Swan.
Dr. Strasser, can you tell me a little more about the bullseye approach, I guess?
Sure. So again, coming from student education and how they look at layers of leadership development, and they'll talk about, you know, how do you hardwire certain practices, and it's just you know, when you think of a bullseye, there's certain practices that you do on the perimeter, and then as you go in, you drill down to essentially what they call the core business. And I often look at that as standard work. It's the stuff, whether you call it standard operating procedures, whether you call it core business, there's different ways to name it. But it's essentially really hardwiring our practices when they are high quality, and it's the stuff that we want to be doing day after day after day, year over year over year. So it's learning, yes, and I'd be happy to break it down a little bit more. It's kind of hard in this setting, but on what you're looking at, that graphic, it's not a full bullseye circle, but the same concept. It's layered improvement over time to get down to what are the things that we want to be really good at that move the needle for student achievement and organizational excellence.
Okay, thank you. Mrs. Stephenson.
Yeah, the NISL who participates in that? Is that teachers, administrators?
It is predominantly building leaders or district leaders.
Okay, and is it like a year-long commitment?
It's a year and a half.
A year and a half?
Yep.
That's great. I'm glad we're offering some consistent. And how many people? I missed how many?
20.
20.
Yep.
All right, excellent. And then the other request I have that you didn't touch on here, but before the end of the year, I'd love an update on our junior K, what's happened this year, and then what the plan is for next year. And just off the top of your head, are we continuing junior K next year?
We are, and you'll hear more about that next week. That'll be on our at
I
our
really
study
appreciate
session.
that. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Berkman.
Thank you. And more question statements, I don't know. But regarding the snow days, former teacher, as you know.
Mhm.
Is there any option, or are we planning any option for staying late, coming early, or are we thinking more like, because I know PLC is hard to do with that, so I get that. But are we thinking flexibility there at all, or is it you're coming these days? And I support you either way. But
Yeah.
I'm just, so I know what to tell people.
I've heard a lot of different things that have been done, and I've had experience in different ways to approach makeup days in the districts that I've worked in prior to Rapid City. And there's no one great way to do it. I looked at if we can get more value out of coming together and advancing the things that we're trying to be really good at. To me, that outweighed extending a day or different options. So that's the approach that I leaned on in this decision.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. And it's tough at the end of the year.
Yes.
I know that there's no good answer. We're all tired and we all want to go home. So I get it, and I appreciate your work in that.
Thank you.
All right, anything else for Dr. Strasser? All right, now our Chief Financial Officer report, Mr. Sassy.
Thank you, President Carr. I have a shockingly short report for the board this evening. Primarily just wanted to give a quick update on the negotiations process. You all have heard me talk before about the idea that 85 to 90% of total district expenditures are wrapped up in compensation. So nothing that we do from a financial perspective has more of an impact than negotiation. So we joke about it a lot, but really, really important process. We spend a significant amount of time planning and having these discussions. So this year has been great. If you recall, all four groups had a totally open agreement this year, meaning that they could address not only the compensation portion, but any other issues that arose through the agreement. We finished 2 groups in 2 sessions, 1 group in 3 sessions, and have 1 group remaining, or a 3rd session with 1 group remaining this week. So conversations have gone exceedingly well. Really want to say thank you to all the group's leadership. They have just done a really excellent job absorbing information, really trying to understand the district's position and perspective when it comes to the financial aspect of the situation that we are in, which just really, really helps all of those conversations when the leadership from those groups comes in and has a really solid understanding of what's going on. Also, thank you to Attorney Parker and the language committees of those groups who did a ton of work outside of the negotiations conversations to be ready with that language, so we didn't spend a tremendous amount of time talking about that. So the hope is to have the other group finished up either this week or next week, and to bring forward all of those agreements on the April 16th meeting, if all things go well, and to approve all of those at once. So I really have very little as far as an update outside of that, because I've spent my whole life lately talking and preparing for negotiations. I would just very quickly comment, and I wish the speaker, Mr. Mullally, would have stuck around. I think he made some really excellent points regarding the TIF and the TID situation. I don't pretend to be an expert in those areas. I understand enough to be dangerous, but certainly not enough to be an expert. But I think he makes some really excellent points around not only the impact to the community in general, but the confusing portions of the financial mechanisms of that. And I certainly think for taxing districts like a public school, there are pros and cons to those situations. And what we know is that it does hold up a significant amount of revenue for an extended period of time as those TIFs are being paid off over time. We do end up receiving all that tax revenue, but the difficult part of that is as it's removed from the rolls, when it's initially approved, it essentially lowers valuation and lowers district revenue. We'll get that back, but we never know at what point when the TIF is going to be paid off. Sometimes TIFs are extended, sometimes they're paid off early, just depending on the mechanics of the TIF. And I think from the other perspective, we also have to think about the way that they benefit our community and growing a lot of those residential areas, and a lot of the infrastructure around our city is funded by TIF and TID developments. And so it's a really complex area. And I do think that Mr. Malai makes a great point that we certainly need to consider those things and look closely at them as they're presented, because it has a major impact on us in the end. So just a brief comment, and I know Mr. Malali left, but wanted to mention that to the board. I think that's all I have, President Carr. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Mrs. Urban.
I too thought his perspective was really interesting and one that I've not really heard before, which makes sense. You hear a lot from the contractors and builders, developers.
Yeah.
Is there any middle, where we can give them a little bit of a break and also still get in some revenue?
That's a really great question, Katie. I don't know, to be honest with you. I know that when the county or city considers those TIFs, there is a significant amount of detail that they require from the developer. And I believe they have some latitude in how they would structure it. I don't know if there is a middle ground that exists in terms of having a reduced rate or some other form of incentive. I don't know. That's a really great question. Frankly, I need to better educate myself around the TIF-TID as well and understand it better. I think that as we've seen our community grow more aggressively over the past several years, there's been more use of TIF and TID just from an outside perspective of looking in on those situations. And so I need to be better acquainted with that and understand the process better, so that we can give a more educated opinion on a lot of those things.
All right, anybody? Ms. Stephenson.
Yeah, I have two things. With all the flood of information at the legislative session, I have not paid I did not pay super close attention to the property tax bill that was passed at the very end. I imagine you probably don't want to give a summary of how that impacts the district right now, but
Yeah.
I'd love to hear an update on, or what that actually means for us.
Yeah.
Property
Yeah.
tax bill.
Yeah, absolutely. I was going to comment on it in our legislative report.
Oh, sure.
So I'll
Okay.
save that until then, but
No problem.
yeah, I will certainly share my thoughts.
The other thing about negotiations, I just wanted to express some appreciation. I was talking to Dr. Strasser about, it's a crazy month to be on the school board. There's a lot of stuff going on, but we don't have that much to do. The work of negotiations is super evident that you and Kelsey and the leaders from the different teams put in a lot of work and a lot of thought, and it makes the process go super smooth. And I'm very appreciative of it. I enjoy those meetings because it has a feel of everybody's here with the same goal. Let's work some things out. Let's solve some problems. And it's just totally different than what negotiations has been, say in 2017 when I joined the board. So I really appreciate everybody that has done a lot of work to make those go smoothly.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate that. I think it has been a really heavy emphasis, certainly in my time with the district, and in a real team effort to try to get not only better at those conversations and more efficient and effective, but really to develop trust with the groups, develop rapport, so that it's as we're having those conversations, we can start from a perspective of trust, and we may not always love what you say, but we believe what you say is accurate and true, and moving forward from there. So really appreciate that comment. That means a lot.
We have no conflicts of interest that I've been aware of. So we're at item 11, approval of the proposed agreement. I'll entertain a motion to approve the proposed agreement.
Motion.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the proposed amendments. Any discussion? Right, seeing no discussion, all in favor of approving the proposed amendment signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any noes, please say no. Okay, motion carries. Any item in our consent agenda a board member would like to pull? Okay, anything else? All right, I will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda except for Oscar.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda except for Oscar. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. Okay, motion carries. All right, I'll entertain a motion to approve item Oscar, amendment to human resources, addendum to human resources.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the addendum or human resources. Any discussion? Oh, Mr. Swan.
Thank you, President Carr. I would like to address three things on the addendum. Three things that I feel are very important. First of all is Principal Christine Henry. I see it as a sad loss for the North Side, for Knollwood. Very dedicated educator, and I'm very sad to see her leaving, but I do understand her reasons, and I'm very happy for her. So thank you for your service, Principal Henry. The other one is on there is a retirement is Robin Fenner. Robin Fenner has been a friend of mine for a while, and I'm glad to see she's retiring. I'll probably see her all summer at the softball fields, and I really look forward to her good time in her retirement. So God bless you, Mrs. Fenner. The other one is our superintendent. Our superintendent, I believe it should be a vote. I think it should be something that we need to address at that level, because this is the next leader. To be placed on there with everything else, I think she should have been a separate vote. So I think that's part of my discussion. So thank you.
Okay, anybody else? Mrs. Stephenson.
Sure, I agree. I think a roll call vote for the superintendent is really important. And I just wanted to express to all of you and to the community that I'm really excited that Dr. Thompson had applied for this position, showed a lot of interest in it, did a lot of work, knew a lot about our district, and comes extremely qualified to lead the district. We had candidates that we wanted to take bits and pieces from. I'll say that. Well, I'll say that on behalf of myself. I wanted to take bits and pieces of a lot of candidates. But I think Dr. Thompson's going to be an extraordinary leader for this district. I hope that we can all come together and support her as she learns what will definitely be a complicated job. And I really look forward to working with her in the years to come.
All right, any other? Mrs. Clapham?
It's more just a procedural question because at this point, we can't truly only vote on that, correct? Because we're voting on O itself. I'm
Correct.
just making sure, okay, I just wanted to make sure I was understanding correctly. Thank you. That's all.
Any other discussion? Okay, we have a second motion, we have the discussion. All in favor of accepting the addendum?
Did you, sorry.
Roll call vote, please.
Yeah.
All right, Shirley, can we do a roll call vote, please?
Troy,
Yes.
Jamie,
Yes.
Christine,
Yes.
Donna,
Yes.
Michael,
Yes.
Walt,
No.
Katie.
Yes.
Motion carries 6-1.
Thank you. All right, items for board information, elementary study, social studies presentation. Hey, Ms. Roberts, Mrs. Roberts.
All right, just making sure that we're set. Thank you all for having us tonight, and I've got a group here that's going to share with you about the elementary social studies adoption. Katie Farmer and Leah Oxner from TLI helped lead this process, and we are joined by some fabulous team members, Katie DeVelder, Andrea Theodorf, and Rhoda Bryan, and so they're gonna share with you some of the same information that they have already shared with instructional council about elementary social studies, and we have new standards and new things to learn. So come on up.
Good evening, board. We would like to share our screen with you this evening. Thank you, Director Roberts. Good evening. Oh, I'm not loud enough. Oh, first time in my life I've ever heard that. All right, thank you for allowing us the opportunity to be here tonight to share more about our new elementary social studies resource, Studies Weekly. We're excited to highlight how this resource is enhancing student engagement, deepening historical understandings, and supporting our educators in delivering high-quality social studies instruction. Tonight, we're pleased to have a couple members of our Elementary Social Studies Committee here to share more about our new instructional resource. Joining us are two of our pilot teachers that have been actively using this resource in their classroom, Kate DeVelder, second grade teacher out at Rapid Valley, and Andrea Theodore, third grade teacher out at Blackhawk. We're also joined by our administrative representative, Rhoda Bryan, principal over at Rapid Valley. Additionally, Leah Oxner and I, Katie Farmer, are the TLI specialists facilitating this adoption. At our first meeting in October, our committee collaboratively crafted a purpose statement that you'll see on the screen now to serve as the foundation of our work. Each time we meet, we review our purpose statement to keep our goals aligned and our discussions centered on our shared vision for elementary social studies education. The purpose statement reflects our commitment to providing a culturally responsive social studies education that connects students to history in meaningful ways. We strive to foster engagement and critical thinking. Our goal is to deepen students' understanding of diverse cultures and perspectives, ensuring that learners feel seen, valued, and empowered. Our Elementary Social Studies Committee is a diverse group dedicated to ensuring that we select the best instructional resource for our students. Our committee consists of K-5 teachers who bring valuable perspectives from each grade level, a special education teacher who helps ensure accessibility for all learners, and an OSCU lead teacher who provides insights into integrating the Ochechi-Sakowin essential understandings. Additionally, we're fortunate to have an administrator on our team offering leadership and guidance throughout the process. This collaborative approach allows us to thoroughly evaluate our resource and make informed decisions that best support our students and educators.
So anytime new standards or a new resource is implemented, it takes a significant amount of time and effort to implement those smoothly. So I'd like to walk you through the timeline. It's displayed on your screen now. So starting in the fall of 2024, we formed the committee. And I really have to give a shout out to the teachers who are already so busy for dedicating their time to support their colleagues in implementing the new social studies standards. And a special thank you to Rhoda Bryan, who is also very busy and stepped up to be the administrative representative for the committee. The committee's work started with developing the purpose statement that Katie Farmer shared with you. And more importantly, they started to review the new South Dakota State Social Studies standards. As the new standards were being reviewed, we began working with the Department of Ed on the recommended resource Studies Weekly. There was a flyer distributed that gives you a brief overview of Studies Weekly. The Department of Ed presented to our committee members on how to navigate Studies Weekly online platform. At the time of the training session, there were no physical materials available, but our amazing teachers stepped up and they piloted the resource just using the limited options on the online platform. Later, we'll hear from the teachers about their experience from piloting that online platform. After piloting the Studies Weekly, the resource was presented to Instructional Council on February 25th, where it received unanimous approval for use. And that takes us to current day, the spring, where the committee is going to develop pacing guides to support all of our elementary teachers in effectively implementing the new standards and this resource. These guides will also incorporate the OSEU standards, which are being updated this April. And just a special thank you to Marie Heiber for leading the work on the committee to ensure the inclusion of those vital standards. As you can see from the timeline, there are plans for work to continue into the summer and at the beginning of next school year. Katie Farmer will outline that at the end of our presentation. So, due to our unique state standards, the Department of Education recognized the challenge of finding suitable materials. So they collaborated with Studies Weekly to design an instructional material that would align with our standards. As a result of this collaboration, Studies Weekly was the only material that was piloted. Mr. Sassy might be interested to know that this will come at no cost to our district, this resource. And although the pilot included a digital platform, there will be physical materials. Now, some of you referenced the Mario Kart, so you may also remember weekly readers. And the weekly readers that we had in our day are similar to what the Study Weekly materials will look like, along with a digital platform, which has videos for students, which we didn't have with our weekly readers, and also podcasts for teachers to listen to. At this time, I would like to introduce Kate DeValder and Andrea Theodorf, and they will share their experiences with the new social studies standards and the piloting of Studies Weekly.
So I'd like to ask a question. So did I hear you say that because of the way the state's standard is, this curriculum is the only one that met the state standard?
That is exactly what happened. We have very unique state standards, and there is no resource that had all of those standards there. So this company, Studies Weekly, agreed to take our standards and pull them together to make a resource specific for our state. And the Department of Ed, they offered to buy that for the districts for 6 years.
Oh, okay.
All right, my name is Kate DeValder. I'm from Rapid Valley and I teach second grade, and I just want to share some things that I have got to experience from piloting Studies Weekly in my classroom. So some things that I've noticed so far is it's a really nice resource to have. It directly meets our new state standards, which is great. All of our lessons are tied very closely to those. There's a lot of exposure for advanced vocabulary use with, especially my second graders, a lot of new words, a lot of new things, but that's awesome. And it's showing them all the different things. The lessons integrate a lot of different reading strategies by using graphic organizers to practice their nonfiction text features, topics and details, comparing and contrasting, and cause and effect. Since social studies does not have a lot of time in the classroom, it's great that we can utilize these reading strategies because we can use some of these resources during our core reading block then, which is awesome. There are some other things that I've noticed too, that classrooms may need some different materials to support some of the lessons, such as full-size maps and globes. There is some hands-on planning of activities if we want them to be super engaging for students. But so far, my students and I have been able to have wonderful conversations just about the topics, and they have been very excited about all of it. I am very excited for next year when we'll actually get to have the periodicals and newspapers in our hands. I think my kids will love to have that. We'll get to use all of our like reading skills that we've practiced. Showing it just on my board hasn't been the most engaging thing, but it's worked. So some lessons that I have explored so far. My students really enjoy the exposure and the conversation. We always get kind of off on some deep topics and whatever their little brains go off and do. One lesson that I was able to explore was the Constitution of the United States with my second graders. We were able to talk about the Constitution, what it is, what it does, why it's even a thing. And we explored the materials provided through Studies Weekly, and then we got to create our own classroom constitution as well. Another lesson that I was able to explore was settling America and South Dakota. We were able to explore the maps and have really great conversations about this, what this looked like from South Dakota then to South Dakota now, obviously. And I was even able to tie that one into some of our OSU standards, talking about different tribal lands and stuff like that too, and looking at different maps of like where reservations are in South Dakota now and all of those things. So those are some of my experiences with Studies Weekly so far.
I'm Andrea Theodorf. I teach third grade at Blackhawk. I'll say the expectation of Studies Weekly versus our reality is a little different because Studies Weekly assumes that we have, half hour to 45 minutes a day to do social studies, and that's just not our reality in the elementary. We have about maybe 45 minutes a week to do it. So I did, like what Kate said, like we're gonna be able to be creative and use some of these resources in our literacy and writing because we'll actually have the physical copies that we can use. So that'll be nice. I've taught from 3 different units. I did US Geography, Ancient Civilizations in Asia, and Life in the Americas and European Exploration. Leah mentioned that there's podcasts for teachers, which, being a third grade teacher, my background in ancient civilizations in Asia was a little lacking. And they have about a 10-minute podcast before each unit that kind of gives the teacher like the nitty gritty of, this is what you're going to cover. And this is kind of the history behind it. So it really helps people like me in that aspect. Some of the activities I've been able to explore was making a map of the United States with major cities and landforms, making a map of South Dakota, and Kate teaches second grade, I teach third, so I liked how you said that you were working, showing the map of South Dakota. We were making our map of South Dakota, so it was kind of building on theirs, and I too am a OSCU lead for my school, so I incorporated the map of the reservations as well, so we included that on our map. With the language arts, components, we were doing Venn diagrams comparing and contrasting farmers and nomads. And one of the favorite activities my kids did was a treasure map with cardinal directions. They found 2 different, that's what the picture is on your presentation. They found 2 spots in my room and they worked with a partner to, they were like, okay, now if I go 4 steps east and then 2 steps west, and they were going like all these different like back and forth and trying to make their map as confusing as possible to give it to somebody else so they could try to find their treasure. And it was a lot of fun. They really enjoyed that and hopefully learned a little bit about cardinal directions because that's a skill that is a lifelong skill. So I have enjoyed Studies Weekly. It's really nice to have a resource. I've been in the district. This is my 18th year teaching, 17 in the district, and I don't have to pull things to try to work with these standards that it's a lot. If you've read the social studies standards, it's a lot. And so I love having this resource that I'm not having to spend hours trying to look through stuff to teach this. So I have been a fan.
Thank you, ladies.
Ms. Urban?
Oh,
Just a real quick question.
Absolutely.
So given what you said about the 45 minutes a week is really what you have and trying to incorporate it into other areas, is it realistic that you'll get through the content that you're supposed to cover?
Well, that's our job with working with the pacing guides, and then hopefully this summer working with the OSCUs to incorporate that as well. Our hope is to try to find time to, well, a pacing guide that would allow teachers to, hey, this would also incorporate into this subject at this time and this one. So that's our job. Our next job is to try to tackle a lot of standards that we have to cover in 1 year.
There's give and take on this. We'll do the best we can. That segues nicely into the last little bit of the work that our committee is going to do as we phase into the completion of this pilot is to finalize our essential standards. And so we use the REAL protocol. Sorry, friends. We use the REAL protocol to identify what are our essential standards for social studies. And the committee's been working on that, and then we'll put it on our pacing guide, and then we'll link in the new OSCU standards and the lessons where it's applicable on that. Just a side note, I'm sure everybody knows, but the OSCU standards will be voted April 14th. And then we can move forward as soon as those are finalized. So then this summer, and beyond, sorry, here down here. We will do professional development. So Studies Weekly is going to hopefully be coming to Rapid City in June to provide some professional development for any teachers that want to attend at that time or in the August during our in-service days for our elementary teachers. And then we'll continue to support them in implementing Studies Weekly throughout. So our last little bit is just that we appreciate your time and your support as we work to enhance our elementary social studies instruction. Thanks for your commitment to providing high quality learning for our students. And at this time, we'll stand for any additional questions.
Ms. Clapham.
I had one well, it's two logistical questions, really. Thank you, ladies, so much. I appreciate your hard work. I know this is a unique challenge when it came to curriculum, one that we haven't really seen in this district. So I appreciate your flexibility and creativity. One, so I think about our buildings and space. And so how often does Studies Weekly, like, do they send the whole year at once? And then does that stay in the warehouse, or how does, I'm just picturing like all the.
So we
large
have
amounts of
sample over at Jefferson. So Studies Weekly is a publishing company. And so they sent us some of their materials, not our South Dakota specific materials. And so they come like, again, reference to some old school things, but like a Scholastic book order. So the teachers will just have to uncollate them and then put them together. So they'll get their stack at the beginning of the year and need to uncollate if they choose to do that. And that will come each year, those physical materials. I think we talked about the authentic texts also. Yeah, those trade books, you did mention that, sorry, I wasn't listening. And so those will be housed year after year. So some kindergarten won't have any class sets, but every other grade level will have some class sets or some just mentor texts where the teacher would provide one copy, so.
Okay, and then I would presume, so will it be pretty easy for parents to access the online version? Because I just have that kid that comes home with 4 wads of paper.
Yeah.
And then I can read like 2 words of it. So will that be like distributed or housed at the district website, or do we know how access to the online will go?
Right now, the demo account is live on the communications tab for social studies. I don't know about once we actually start implementing it, but we'll make sure we find that out.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Ms. Stephenson.
Yeah, thanks for this information. I also appreciate the heavy lift and the work that went into this. I don't know if I understood correctly, but our district could choose the essential standards out of all the standards that came out. So our teachers won't have to, I mean, they'll know all this content they might not get to, but they'll have a more digestible list.
Yeah, so typically with any content area, you determine your essential standards.
Oh,
So
okay.
that's
I
not
didn't know that.
specific just to social studies.
Okay.
So all of our content areas choose the essential standards because like Director Roberts said, you can't get to every standard and not all of them are essential, but they are supporting standards. They may build into others. And so this committee is no different than any of the other content committees, just will work through determining our essential standards. So if it comes down to, ooh, I have to choose this or choose this, I'm gonna choose this lesson if it's an essential standard and I'll have to bypass this or, send it home with a student like, here, play school at home.
And then the district is incorporating some OSEUs as essential standards.
The lessons will be linked for right now. And then because I also am on the elementary ELA adoption, we're gonna link the OSCU standards and some of our social studies on our ELA pacing guide. That work will happen next spring. So we're gonna try to tie it all up in a nice bow because we know time is so essential and we always fight for it. So if we can say, here's a studies weekly lesson that fits with comparing and contrasting and aligns with this, let's all put it together in one little bow.
Oh my gosh, it sounds like it's gonna take
Studies and not yet.
Okay. Yeah, I would really, just as one board member, I'd really like to see OSEUs be considered essential standards across the district. I think they're incredibly valuable for all of our students and board members to learn about.
And I said I was a OSU member, and the past 2 years, we've been working really hard. We've incorporated a lot of our lessons that we have been doing into our wonders. We have a grid with all, I'm on unit 1, week 4. Well, this OSU lesson works really well with that. So teachers have access to that, and with mystery science that we're doing too. We have OSU lessons for every unit, for every grade.
Oh, that's great to hear. Thanks for doing that. And then was there an opportunity to provide feedback as you piloted this, or is this done? This came to you as a final product?
We did, it was the night that the weather wreaked havoc and we had an open, a parent input session down in the sunken room. But we didn't have anybody come.
Oh, but you couldn't provide feedback to Studies Weekly or to the DOE?
No,
Okay.
as far as them creating and us giving feedback for what the material is.
Yeah, for the actual materials.
Oh, yeah,
That's done.
yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Berkland.
Thank you. I have a kind of related question. Does the state have any guidance on essential standards, or is that all on us? Or do they just say all of them are essential?
Well, it depends what content you're looking at. For example, math.
For this one, yeah.
So on the South Dakota State Social Studies Standards, there was no guidance, as there are in other content areas, as far as what should be essential. And Katie referenced the REAL protocol. So what that means is the teachers looked through each standard and they decide if they met certain criteria: readiness, endurance, assessment, and leverage. And I won't get too far into that. It's not that exciting, but they use those criteria points to decide if a standard should be essential or not. So does that answer your question?
Yeah, is there any kind of like for math, there's the unpacking committees. Is that something that the state is doing, or is it just all us?
As of now, no.
Okay.
But that's why we formed this committee, is to really dig into those standards and do that work and decide how those standards, what will be essential in our district.
Yeah, I appreciate you doing all that. That's a lot of work. So that's why I was asking, are you getting any help? The other question that I had was regarding the materials. I'm glad that we have something. Are you finding that it is accessible, that it is, I know one of the big concerns I had with the social studies standards was it feels like some high level stuff. Does it do a decent job of bringing it down to a second, third grade level? These, what I would say are not second, third grade topics?
Are you talking if it's developmentally
and vocabulary?
Definitely rigorous.
Okay.
Would be a word I would use. It stretches them for sure, but I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing.
Yeah.
and I think exposure to that kind of stuff is good. So, but then in the few years, if we start in kindergarten next year, as they get used to getting exposure to that, it will get easier. This first year's been a little rough because they're just kind of like, what? But I'm hoping as we continue on, it'll get a little easier.
But it feels like something that can be done.
Yeah.
Hard, but doable.
Yes.
Great. Love to hear that. Thank you.
I think we talked as a committee a lot about that in the beginning, about whether we should, like, how much this is like ancient civilizations and first grade. But one of the things that we really talked about was exposure. Because I think that's really hard when you read the standards and you look at the developmentally appropriate. So we had a lot of discussion as a committee around what is exposure and what is mastery of the standards. So that definitely was a part of our discussion.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Exposure is, that's a great point. Exposure is one thing, mastery is definitely another. So thank you for that.
For the math curriculum, there was a schedule put out where I know specifically for board members could come to a teacher at a particular teacher at a class at the time that they were doing the math standard. Is the piloting done at this point?
Well, no, we did ask a couple of our teachers if they would be willing to invite some board members in. And we did have one that said she would be willing, but then she never gave me a date. So I'm sure these ladies would love to have you in their room.
Yeah,
Was that helpful? Look at them. I'm telling you, they're fantastic.
Yeah, I would love to come and just see it in action, real life action. And that's with, Ms. Roberts, with all the curriculum, if we can get that.
Yes.
That schedule.
Yes.
You all remember the math, it was laid out. You could know.
And we will do that with elementary ELA next year.
Okay.
This was just kind of a shorter pilot for them, and so it was. Leah and I went into the classrooms and observed too, but we didn't put too much on for you guys, so sorry.
That's okay. Would love to come.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah, I just had one more thing I was gonna add to that, and I don't disagree. I think part of the difference is we didn't really have a choice here.
Yeah,
Whereas
there
the
was
last
no-
time with the math, I was going and I saw the McGraw-Hill one and I forget the other one we didn't choose. And so that was. Origo, yeah. So that's also part of it, that I understand why we kind of zoomed through this pilot process, because it's just been weird the whole way through.
This one was like your mom's dinner, take it or leave it.
But I would still love to see what the dinner is at some point. Yeah. Less urgent, maybe.
This is urban.
So you didn't have actual resources before for social studies standards? Was there a curriculum in place?
We did. They're just an outdated, if you will, like textbook. So there were resources. They will be sent to the warehouse after this school year. So we did have an instructional material. Just might not have been the most current.
Got it. Thank you.
I've been teaching third grade for 13 years. They were in my drawers when I got to third grade. So it's been a long time.
Wow.
And they don't match the standards at all. The stuff we have.
Okay. Any questions for this team? Thank you very much, all you ladies, for all the hard work and the extra things that you have to do. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, legislative updates. Mr. Sassy.
Thank you, President Carr. So the 100th legislative session of our state came to an end last week. Kind of want to start big picture and then funnel downwards. I don't know if you all get the updates from Associated School Boards, but they had a really nice piece recapping the 25 legislative session. And some of this I just found incredibly interesting. They talk in the first paragraph about, as we're all aware, what a difficult year it was in terms of defending public education. Their bill tracker on their website, they talk about the idea that bill tracker's numbers back the sentiment that it was a difficult year up, as this year ASBSD opposed 44 bills, the highest ever in the 11 years of the tracking system, by 12 bills. They go on to say of that record number, 90% of those were killed or died off throughout the legislative process. This year, they tracked the 91 total pieces of legislation, which felt like 300 or 400 if you were inside of that situation, and supported just 8 proposals. So again, I think that's a good indication of the type of bills that were coming at public education. 7 of the 8 pieces of legislation that were supported were successful in the end. They talk about the idea that's a pretty good ratio, but all told, there was about an 87% success rate in getting bills either across the line or killed in the legislative process. So I thought that was a great recap and sort of highlights the main idea of the session from a public ed standpoint. It was a really interesting year. I made the comment several times that in 16 years of paying pretty close attention to what's happening in peer during this time period, by far the craziest year I've seen in terms of the total amount of bills and the bills that were impacting public education. It's interesting because I think, in my opinion, the 2 bills that ended up passing that have what I would call a material impact on the district, at least from a fiscal perspective. Dr. Strasser may have some thoughts around bills outside of that world, but at least from the fiscal perspective, there was really 2 bills I thought that will have an impact on the district. The first being SB 55, which was the normal state aid bill, contained minor adjustments to the levy, adjustments that the state makes on a yearly basis, or excuse me, legislature makes on a yearly basis, and then contains the increase for the target teacher salary of the state aid formula. And that bill was written with the governor's recommendation of 1.25%, which is what ended up passing. So target teacher salary increase is 1.25% within that formula. As we've talked many, many times, that doesn't mean that state aid's increasing by 1.25%. That's just that variable of the formula. So that was what we've been planning for in all of our budgeting scenarios. So it's not a great outcome. We pushed pretty hard. Our lobbyists pushed pretty hard on the idea that no one on earth has experienced a 1.25% inflationary increase in the last year. It's very difficult to keep pace with inflation. It's very difficult to make up meaningful ground in terms of compensation at a 1.25, but ultimately that's what was voted on and approved. So that's sort of the state aid portion of that. The other bill that I feel is going to have a material impact, which I think is much harder to unpack and really at this point understand what that's going to look like, was SB 216, which was, Christine, your question earlier, the property tax bill that ended up passing, called the governor's bill. Governor Roden has already discussed the idea that there's going to be further adjustments or legislation brought forward regarding that bill. Not really any indication of what that meant, but something, further reductions, essentially. Bill was aimed at limiting or reducing property tax. The main component of the bill is essentially that the owner-occupied portion of property valuations is going to be limited or capped for a 5-year period, with a sunset at the end of that 5 years. Part of what I've learned in this process this year, and I think, again, the major increase in the number of bills, especially around property tax relief, is they were written quickly, and with all due respect, at times I don't think necessarily that all ramifications were well thought out, and all interpretations of what those things even meant were well thought out. So this bill in particular, in my opinion, has a lot of questions that need to be answered about how it's going to be interpreted and ultimately how that's applied to taxing districts like a school district, like county, et cetera. But the main bulk of the bill is aimed at not allowing that owner-occupied status to grow faster than a specific rate. That rate initially was 2%. There was an amendment that came in towards the end of the process that allowed school districts, taxing districts to increase that to 3%. If you look at the bill, I think that the section that we need to be most concerned about from a district perspective is section 3. That section deals specifically with the capital outlay portion of school districts and what happens with that, and limits the way I'm interpreting it and some of my counterparts around the state are interpreting it, limits the growth portion of the capital outlay formula at 3%. So currently the formula is growth in quotations, literally, meaning any new valuation inside of your district's property plus 3% or inflation, whichever is greater. For example, in the current tax year, the district's growth was 5.5% plus the 3% for the inflationary factor. So from a year over year perspective, capital outlay revenue grew by 8.5%. As I'm interpreting this bill, that growth being capped at 3% means that in the formula, it wouldn't matter if growth was 10% or 12% or 15%, it's going to be 3% plus the 3% for the inflationary factor. So essentially a district could only increase the revenue from a year over year perspective by 6%, no matter what their actual growth was. I think there's a lot of impacts to that, obviously, not only from a revenue perspective, but addressing the way that your district and your city is growing and shifting and moving, and that being reflected in the valuations really restricts the way that a district can respond to that in terms of having the resources available to do that. Again, I think our eastern side of the city is a great example. Capacity issues. Capacity exists in the interior of town. That has really nothing to do with our enrollment numbers and the way things are growing and moving. That's a totally independent issue. So I think it really restricts districts, not just our district, all districts' ability to respond to the way that their city or their area is growing and moving and changing. I think it also has a major impact, not on an opt-out. An opt-out is a totally different mechanism, but will have an impact on a bond. Bonds are a significant influence on bond and bond pricing is the assumption of how your district's property valuation is going to grow from year to year to year. Of course, you're amortizing out a bond generally over a 20, 25, 30-year period. So making a good assumption is essential about how that's going to grow. That has a major impact on ultimately the pricing that you're able to put out to the taxpayer, as well as the overall ask, because pricing ultimately adds up to how much the overall ask is. So it's going to have an impact. Again, I think there's a lot of questions that need to be answered about, does it only restrict revenue growth or does it also restrict valuation growth? So another way of saying that would be, will our valuation continue to grow at the true rate, whatever the true rate is, only the revenue will be held back? Or does overall valuation get held back, which then impacts the revenue aspect of that? So that bill in particular has a lot of unanswered questions. Depending on the material in the bill, it gets farmed out to different areas to give input on that, and ultimately the interpretation being written by the Legislative Research Council. So, for example, it's likely that the Department of Education will have some input on their interpretation of that bill. Most likely multiple law firms will weigh in on their interpretations of what that means and how it will be applied. So I think there's some ground to cover in terms of exactly what that looks like and how it's going to impact all districts around the state. But it is a bill that's going to materially impact the district in one form or another at this point. I think the other comment about that is the idea of a sunset clause is interesting. So sunsets have been included in a lot of bills throughout history, and sometimes those sunsets sunset, and sometimes those sunsets do not sunset. They stick around, and so the idea that this was aimed at property tax relief for a specific period of time, but could live on for a much longer period in some form or fashion is concerning as well. So. Those are really the two major bills that I felt had a material impact. Last comment, I think we're going to talk more about this, but a really interesting experience having our own lobbyist. And I learned a tremendous amount about the process and that there is obviously way more to it than meets the eye. I will tell you from my perspective, and again, I'm going to summarize this and hope to bring the Nelsons in and have further conversation, sort of a debrief about how the session went. If we entertain the idea of again, contracting with them moving forward, how that could look differently, more effective. I've shared some of the ideas from the board regarding the potential of a legislative committee and what that could look like. But in general, I will tell you from my perspective, I think it was a great return on investment. I think especially in a very difficult year like this where we understood moving into the session, there was going to be a lot of defending and a lot of digging in areas, and that again, coming out of that session with, in my opinion, two bills that from a fiscal standpoint are materially impacting the district. I think it was great. With that, a great return on investment. With that being said, I think we can get much better at how we use those folks. Again, I think the idea of being more proactive around the potential of proposing bills that are favorable to our CAS and that address our unique circumstances is really important. And that's all stuff we're going to talk more and more about. So more on that to come. But I wanted to mention, I do think it was great return on investment and that they were extremely helpful in a difficult year. So that's it for me. Dr. Strasser, do you have anything you want to comment?
All right, thank you for that. Oh, he does. Okay, you don't. Okay, that's what I thought. Okay. Board members, any questions about the legislative update? All right, committee reports. Mrs. Urban.
I just have one, it's on the inter-school council, the parent council. And just picking up where you left off, Coy, one of the requests was to have some sort of a presentation about the legislature. Like so many of us, they just felt really, we don't know what to pay attention to. And we feel like if we had an update regularly that we could advocate was kind of the message that we heard. And so I think next year, that's something to think about for that group because they are great ambassadors. And even yet at the end, you know, whether it's April or May, if you could even come in and just speak high level about these are the things like you just said that are material to our school district, I think would be really helpful. So yeah, keep that in mind. There's a lot of concern around the department, the National Department of Ed. And so obviously we don't have a lot of great answers on that. Dr. Strasser spoke a little bit to it, but lots of concern there. We heard all about the many activities happening, really exciting stuff at all of the schools. They had some questions about snow days and a couple of facilities questions, but great group. And I think it's a group that we could utilize more than we do right now.
Let me just add to that. I would suggest that that group and anybody that is interested in the legislative process and updates come to the board meetings because we get those updates every week during the session. We were getting updates. And so it's a convenient time for them to come to when we get the updates, and be involved. They can even, I think it would be, if they had if they had questions that they could write questions that we could give to Coy for him to answer so that we could meet their particular need. That would be my suggestion, to include them, to keep them, for those that want to be kept informed, to do it that way. So.
And I would just, my only maybe slight pushback would be that they're parents and they're busy at night. And I mean, these are recorded, so that's one way to keep it. But I think going and being proactive and going to parents and giving them what they need is sometimes just the most practical thing for these families. And it might be more work for us, but I think it would pay off.
Okay, we'll see. All right, Mr. Swan.
I just have one. It was the OCR stakeholder meeting, and this was with Coactive Collection. Both of them were very, very interesting session. Really was. They talked a lot about, you know, the truancy, the higher ed classes, and the behavior. It was really a nice session. I think Jen attended, and we had a really nice night. Pizza was good. But the questions were interesting. You know, they had asked for different data sets and in regards to Native American community, and they asked for different sets with creating consistencies. You know, I mean, that was what they talked about, was some of the inconsistencies in how the truancy was handled and how the behavior was handled. So we don't have a clear, it's more like the leave policies we had talked about in prior meetings about they would like to see more consistencies in that regard. So I think that when we talk about this stuff, I think the data sets that we get, but overall, it was a good discussion. The questions were, you know, we were divided up into 3 groups and it really went well. I think that, I'm looking forward to the results of this group and to see how they would come to a conclusion of what maybe setting for some recommendations for our district. So that was it for the stakeholder meeting.
Any other committee reports? All right, seeing none, any other? Ms. Clapham.
As I looked at my other, I thought, wow, I must have packed 4 weeks of things into 2 weeks, it seems like, since the last board meeting. But just, I think mainly fortunately being as both a board member and a parent, but a couple of positives. I just want to say Southwest Middle School had their 8th grade interview day, which is a really cool process. So they bring in people from all over the community, and 8th graders actually have to have a resume and they interview. And because at 14, they can start interviewing for jobs. So, and it is required of every 8th grade student. And I think we could learn a lot and possibly see that at other schools. It's a really cool experience and process. So great job to them. And like I said, I'd love to learn and see if we could do that in other places in the district. And others, bingo night at Blackhawk was wonderful. Really great attendance. It's always good to see just the kids being social and whatnot. And a big thank you to Miss South Dakota. She gave up her afternoon to go during Read Across America Week and read to kids at Blackhawk. We made it to every classroom and every student in that afternoon. So it was busy, but it was a lot of fun. And it was really cool to hear the questions the kids had. And just to really, it was very nice to run into Dr. Strasser in the building and just, you know, we're reminded that our administrators are out and about all the time, but that was a great time and experience. And the last thing I thought we talked a little bit about with the social studies curriculum about collaboration and integrating, and I just experienced a really cool, the music elective at West and the social studies. So they did a whole presentation on songs, and the songs are all about the rise of the Roman civilization. And it was a musical, and it was really impressive. And I was just so impressed at how the 2 classes really overlapped, and how I would have never in my mind thought, well, how in the world is music gonna do this, and it was actually really cool and really entertaining. So our teachers, our staff is doing a great job of doing those collaborative things in ways that I would have never even thought about.
All right, anything else? Are you? Okay, Mr. Berkeley.
Thank you. I just wanted to shout out our music programs as well. United in Song, Festival of Bands, Strings and Concert, all of those happened. I was at Strings and Concert. Miss Roberts was my counterpart for the evening. I was honored to be selected to introduce it. I was a band kid, so I knew a lot about the band world. It was so cool to see a little bit more of the strings world. And two big shout outs there. One is the staff to put that together, including their guest director, who is a RCS alum, Kate Matthews, and is now working on her doctorate. She was so great with them, the staff, getting everyone together. And also they were student volunteers from Central that were so helpful. They helped me find where I was going. One of the students, one of the fourth graders, had their violin broke and she ran backstage, and thank goodness didn't come to me. I would have had no idea what to do, but those high school students just jumped right into action to fix her violin and get her out there for the next song. So I just wanted to shout out them for doing what I see as, frankly, an impeccable feat of teaching a fourth grader to do anything. I don't know how you do that. But they all sounded great, and it was so well organized to get the seventh graders off, the fourth graders on. You would have, and backstage looked chaotic, but out stage out on the stage, you would have no idea. And so shout out to them for putting on such, I'm assuming all three were great events. I was only at Strings and Concert, but.
All right, Ms. Clappin.
I'm sorry, I forgot. I just wanted to say for the community, it is known we went through our superintendent interview process, and I just wanted to say I believe, obviously it's one person's opinion, but it was a really collaborative. There were community members, the mayor, the chief of police, there were dozens of people involved in the process, from all across the community, from parents to students to directors too. So it was a really, I think, robust process. And from the start of with the search firm and all the work they did to vet every candidate, and the full 8 hours of the day spent, and those people meeting so many people from our district. And so it's one of those things that's somewhat quote unquote behind the scenes. Everybody else going to work every day may not necessarily see it, but it really was a robust and thorough process. And I appreciate a big shout out to Ms. Shirley and all of our staff up here at RCEC with Bobby that just got everybody where they needed to be and handled all of that beautifully. And so I'm appreciative of everyone and excited for moving forward with the district. And just, like I said, for the public to know that I think there were we heard a lot like that what input is desired, and there was a lot of that and a lot of opportunity for that. So I think it was a good, robust process, and I am a little bit glad it's over, but it was tiring, but just wanted the community to know that.
All right. Anybody else on other? All right, at this time, I will entertain a motion to go into executive session SDCL 1-25-2.1, 2.3, and 2.4.
So moved.
It's been moved and seconded to go into executive session. I guess, no, we don't need a discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Noes, please say no. All right, we are now in an executive session. The board will not take any votes during this time. We will take a 5-minute